is the redemption of the human heart is possible, and what's at stake is your whole vocation. To the married life, to the religious life, everything is at stake. If a dad is hooked on this stuff, his capacity to transmit the spiritual life to his family is entirely cut off from him until he conquers this vice. Because how can I lead another soul to heaven if I can't even guard mine from the temptations of hell? And so what do we do as men when we see these beautiful women? What I recommend is, instead of just thinking of her as just some temptation to sin, which she could be, instead of that, what I suggest, when you see a beautiful woman, say Psalm 84. How lovely is your dwelling place, Lord mighty God. You don't need to read the whole chapter when you're looking at her, just the first verse is enough. But just to acknowledge her beauty comes from God. Because the woman's the most beautiful thing God put on earth. And it's not a sin to be attracted to that. Nothing is more beautiful than a woman. I mean, what do guys get addicted to on the internet? Looking at flamingos or like waterfalls? Like, oh, my mom caught me looking at rainbows on the internet. Double rainbow. It gets close to the beauty of a woman. You see this in the Bible. You know, the book of Genesis presents the woman as the crescendo of creation. That God creates the stars and the bugs and the dirt and the cow and the man and then the woman. And when Adam sees her, he's in awe. Alas, this one is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. He's in awe of her. What's kind of funny is when Eve first sees Adam, she doesn't say anything. She's like, that's nice. But with this great beauty that you women possess comes great responsibility in how you reveal your beauty to the world. And my challenge for you of the weed that might need to get uprooted is this weed of immodesty. And when it comes to modesty, some girls say, well, I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, it's hot here in the Philippines. You know, I need to wear these little shorts, and my belly button keeps me nice and cool, and the spaghetti straps, and, you know, when I buy a dress, it needs to have a slit up to my armpit, you know. It's just so hot here. Okay, first thing, the temperature argument, I don't buy it at all. Why? This is why. About 1,600 years ago, in modern-day Turkey, there was a Roman emperor by the name of Licinius. And he was worshiping pagan gods, and he found 40 of his Roman legionary soldiers, his top men, would not burn incense to the pagan gods. And then he called them in, and he said, come on guys, you guys are my best men, just burn incense to the pagan god, and let's get on with this. And they said, we refuse to. So he said, just put him in prison. You know, and the punishment was to kill him, but he said, just put him in prison. And there he couldn't break the will. So he said, fine, we gotta just execute him. So what are we gonna do? They won't burn incense to the pagan god. And the governor said, I'll take care of this. And he marched him out to a frozen lake on Armenia. And it's in the middle of the winter. And he had these 40 Roman soldiers stripped naked. And he sent them out into an icy lake to stand on the frozen ice together, to stand there throughout the night until they were dead. And all 40 soldiers huddled together. And they said, God has ordained us to be brothers in this life, and let us pray that we would persevere to eternity. And they spent the night there, huddling together in prayer. Meanwhile, the governor lit fires all around the edge of little fireplaces for them to come. He had baths with warm water. And he said, just come, burn incense to the pagan god, and just get in the warm bath, and you will live. And all 40 men just huddled together praying. You can imagine their breath, the fog of their breath rising up to heaven like incense. And they just prayed that God would keep the sacred number of 40 together. One of them couldn't stand it anymore. He ran to the shore and he jumped into this hot bath. And the shock of the hypothermia to this boiling bath put him into shock, and he died on the spot. And one of the soldiers who witnessed the other 39's courage took his own clothes off, declared himself a Christian, and marched out there naked. And that night, he died with the other 40 men. And in the morning, the emperor wanted no one to know what had happened, that the world would forget about them. And so he burned their bodies to a crisp, and he spread their ashes in the river so it would be gone and forever forgotten. And now, centuries later, that governor is the one who's forgotten, and the emperor and these 40 martyrs, the 40 saints, the martyrs of Sebaste, are honored throughout the church calendar. And to realize, if these 40 men can brave the night in freezing temperatures rather than burn incense to a pagan god, can we not put on a little bit more fabric? I mean, I think we can handle this for love of Jesus Christ. You know, let's not get over dramatic. I mean, it's not like you're standing on the surface of the sun here, okay? Yeah, it's hot, but you know what? Mother Teresa said, when you love until it hurts, There isn't hurt anymore, just more love. And so realize that your modesty is an expression of love. Just that little sacrifice. And understand, girls, I know it's kind of hard to understand. Why is it such a big deal for guys? Trust me, none of you women probably so far today have been distracted by another man's legs in this auditorium, have you? You know, do you find yourself looking across the aisle and that guy's long hairy legs over there? We're different, and just to understand, your modesty is an unspoken invitation to us to treat you with the dignity that you deserve. And so to grow as a man against the vice of pornography and the girls towards the virtue of modesty. The fifth point, keep the relationship itself pure when you're in it. And the first question that comes up is, well, how far can we go? I was at a high school or junior high in Washington, D.C. 3 12-year-old girls came up to me. And they're like, Jason, is it okay for us to hook up and make out with different boys at the party? Like, they're 12. And I'm like, let's say the boy you're going to marry doesn't go to that party. Let's say the boy you're going to marry goes across the street to that school, and right now, he's with an 8th grade cheerleader who wants to hook up and make out with him. I go, what do you think about that other girl who's with your future husband? And she was like, I'd kick her butt. I'm like, easy, tiger. But if you hope your future spouse will be pure, to be pure yourself. And young women, on your wedding day, I want you to look radiant. But I just want you to make sure that your soul matches your dress. Because the beauty on the outside never gets into the soul, but the beauty of the soul reflects itself upon the face. And maybe you've made past mistakes, but the beauty is that you can start over. And in order for a relationship to be pure like this, we've got to die to ourselves. I mean, on our wedding day, there was a little boy sitting in the back of the church, and he'd never been to a wedding before. And he was soaking in all the symbolism. And he said, Dad, why is Krystalina dressed in all that beautiful white? And the dad said, because today is the happiest day of her life, and she's radiant with joy. And the kid's like, oh, okay. And then he said, Dad, why is Jason wearing all black then? Black traditionally is a symbol of death, and we've got to die to ourselves sometimes in relationships, especially as the guys. One guy came up to me and he said, Jason, the girl I'm sleeping with right now, he said, I love her so much, I would die for her. He's like, I know we're having sex and everything, but I would die for her. I'm like, really? You'd die for her? He's like, no kidding. He said, if someone put a gun to my girlfriend's head and was going to shoot her, I would take the gun out of his head and say, shoot me instead. That's how much I love her. I said, really? You'd die for her? He said, I would die for her. And I said, then do it. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, look, nobody's going to be shooting your girlfriend unless she's all involved in organized crimes and Mexican drug cartel and the syndicates. No one is going to be shooting your girlfriend anytime soon. You don't have to protect her from the mafia. You have to protect her from your own selfishness and lust. That's where the death needs to be. In fact, a friend of mine, she got engaged. And when her fiance proposed to her, he gave her a little love story of their relationship in a book. And she opened the book, and the first page said, Jessica, the day I met you, I wanted to die. And she's like, oh, that's morbid. And you turn the page and it says, to myself. To love a woman more than I love me. To put your needs before my needs. In fact, I know another guy on his wedding day. There's a tradition in America where on your wedding day, after the wedding, you have a reception, and the bride sits down on a chair. And everybody crowds around, and the groom comes in front of her, and he reaches up her dress to pull down the garter off of her thigh. And he pulls it down, and he throws it over his shoulder to a bunch of, like, slobbering single guys who fight over this good luck charm. And this guy on his wedding said, you know, that's really not how I want to introduce my bride to the world, so I'm going to shake it up a little bit. And so the bride sat down, everybody got around. And he came in front of her, and oh, here comes the garter. Nuh-uh. And he kneels down, and he pulls out a pitcher of water and a bowl. And he took her shoe off, and he washed her feet like Christ washed the feet of his bride the night before he gave his life for her. And this guy was not putting on a show. This is literally how he thought his bride deserved to be served. And so if we can serve each other in purity and love, it'll only strengthen that relationship. And if you think, well, Jason, these are all beautiful things, but I've made some big mistakes. I'm making them right now. How do we start over? The beauty of chastity, it doesn't matter what's happened. We can all be made new creations. And to prove it to you, having come with me is my wife, Krystalina, so please give her a warm welcome. Come on.